On this week's episode, we have educator, activist, and founder of the Real Talk Project, Amreen. Yeah! Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the celebration. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you are here today, we appreciate the heck out of that. As you can see, sense, feel, or hear, I'm not alone. I have an amazing guest, Amreen Karmali, educator, activist, and founder of the Real Talk Project. How'd I do? Was that on point?
Yeah,
okay.
Totally great. Thank you.
Which one of those would you like to expand upon for the folks out there? What does educator mean to you? Activist mean to you? What's the Real Talk Project? Any or all of those is up to you.
They are all in one.
Okay.
I think for me, I actually was never thinking of becoming an educator. I became an educator about 15 years ago. I was that child in school who hated school.
Okay.
And so to become an educator was very different for me. And I didn't really go into it with an intention of this is something I want to do to change the world. I honestly kind of just fell into it and then fell in love with it. And for me now, 15 years later, looking at education as such a powerful tool to create change, right? And it's not necessarily only the youth. We can learn for our whole entire lives, right? So it's kind of my take on education.
That's amazing. Okay, what do you mean by fell into it? What does it mean to fall into something?
Literally, I was substitute teaching. I was a biological anthropology major.
Wow.
And I was working in zoos and found it incredibly depressing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I wasn't ready for that one, right? I found it really depressing, and just watching the animals being caged, and I was working with chimpanzees who are so emotional. So I had to switch, and I didn't really know what to do. I was 21 and I started substitute teaching.
Okay, in LA?
In Oakland.
In Oakland, okay.
I was in Oakland, living there at the time. And I was substitute teaching, and I was at a school in East Oakland, and I was there for a couple days. And one of the teachers really liked me, and they were like, hey, you did great with the kids. Can we put you on our permanent sub list? Ooh. And I was like, oh, cool, check me,
What age, what class?
Middle school.
Oh, the worst. Wow, you are.
I am special. Yes. I'm crazy. They're crazy. It all works out. I love middle school.
Okay.
And so they called me up a month later, and they were like, "Hey, a teacher, speaking of crazy, just walked out of the job.
Wow.
Randomly, it was a science teacher, and they were like, "Can you cover their class for a month, a long-term sub position?" Yeah. Like, sure, it pays better. I get some insurance. All right.
Nice.
So I started doing that, and at the end of the month, they were like, hey, we really like you. You're good at this. What do you think about becoming a teacher? And I was like, what do I got to do? And they're like, sign up for these night classes. And that's how I became a teacher.
That's amazing.
Crazy, right? Yeah.
And then how did that become education and activists?
I think in that, working in communities of color, I was raised in a predominantly white community. I didn't have, and my parents were pretty liberal and politically active, but I didn't really have a lot of lingo or terminology. And I grew up in a middle-class community with immigrant parents who had an education. Okay. So I do have some level of privilege. Yeah. And so I wasn't really aware of a lot of the things going on in low-income people of color communities. Okay. And so when I was working in East Oakland and really seeing the trauma that my kids were going through because of foster care or because of police brutality, because of all these injustices, it really inspired me to become an activist. And I started doing a lot of my activist organizing work around the Justice for Oscar Grant movement and police brutality. And from there, getting more into organizing with educators. I'm a co-founder of the People's Education Movement.
It's amazing.
Which is a radical teachers of color space where we talk about bringing in curriculum that helps us heal our wounds.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then now you're the founder of the Real Talk Project. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the Real Talk Project, I founded just recently this past year.
It's amazing.
It was a huge leap of faith. I've been a teacher for 15 years, and I just wanted to be able to do something that's more aligned with my passions. I love teaching, but it's also very limiting in some sort of way. The Real Talk Project focuses on gender justice. And it has 3 different wings. There's one wing where I go into schools and I work with teachers to talk about microaggressions when it comes to gender, right? So I do professional development, really helping them learn how to identify these microaggressions so that they can use it as teachable moments.
Okay.
Another wing is the Male Ally Project. So it's an online self-paced 6-week class where men can plug in, cisgendered men can plug in and get articles, watch videos, just to really increase their understanding of how to become an ally. So that's in its 3rd week right now, which is really exciting and interesting. And I've gotten tons of really great feedback. It's also challenging, but I mean, I think this work, if you're not challenging, if you're not getting pushback, if it's not difficult, then you're not doing it right. You know? And then the other wing is creating a sex positive sex ed curriculum, and that's working with parents and teachers to really create a sex education that's not disempowering for anybody.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's break down some of those words. Okay, what is gender, what is justice, and what is gender justice?
Gender justice. Those are lofty words, right? Gender is a social construct.
Okay.
And in our society, we tend to think of it as male and female.
Okay.
There is also ideas in many cultures that you can be non-binary, one or the other, right? Or two-spirited or transgender. So really getting into thinking of it in other ways that allow people to be free.
That's amazing.
You know, and then thinking of gender justice, it's just that, right? It's thinking of how do we really take some of these labels away to create more freedom.
That's awesome. Okay, talk to me about microaggressions. That was in, I feel like the camp that kind of brought about Trump. That's another one of their buzzwords. They're like, you know, social justice and PC culture and microaggressions, you know, are they saying colleges? It's microaggressions are too sensitive.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about coming into an educational space and using this to create inclusive classrooms.
For me, it's all about creating communities that are based on love and kindness. And I think that as human beings, we generally want to be loving and kind. Yes. We are enculturated by our society to really base ourselves in fear politics, and there's a lot of haterism and things that keep us separate, right? And I think that that's intentionally done because when we are separate, we're much less powerful.
Yes.
When we're together, we are so very powerful.
Yes.
So in thinking about this buzzword microaggressions, honestly, all it really is being considerate, right? Like, how do we be considerate to each other? How do we be sensitive to each other? A lot of times we don't intentionally mean to hurt people. Like, let's just think and stop and be more thoughtful. And the thing is like, just because this is work I do doesn't mean I'm exempt for it, right? Yes. As a person who's born and raised in this society, I have my internalized racisms. I have my internalized patriarchies. It's stuff that I work on myself to undo and that I make mistakes around all the time. Yes. You know?
So what is it a microaggression and what's an example of one that you share with educators?
I made a really racist remark the other day that I was just like, I checked myself and I was like, oh God, I can't believe I said that out loud. And the fact that I thought that is horrible too, you know? But I train capoeira. It's an Afro-Brazilian martial art. And I was joking around with some of my friends and I mixed up 2 of their names. And I was like, oh, the other Asian girl, you know? And I just instantly, I was like, oh shit, you know? But that's not cool of me to say whatsoever because that just lumps people together based on one quality, you know? So that's one that I did the other day. Another one was I was at the gym the other day and I was like learning how to lift weights. Yeah. And a gentleman came up and didn't speak to me, but spoke to the trainer that I was with and was like, oh, that's the lightweight that she's using, right? The lightweight bar. And I think for me, I was offended on 2 levels. 1, it wasn't the lightweight bar. It was the heavier weight. And 2, like, you could very easily just ask me why I defer to the man next to me.
So what makes it, rather than just sexist, a microaggression?
I think that is something that it's the microaggression. People wouldn't even think that that's something that could bother somebody. Yeah. You know? It's the automatic invisibilizing of people. Yes. So the fact that I said something about 2 Asian women and lumped them into the same category, or the fact that I wasn't there as a human being, I had to be somebody deferred to the man next to me invisibilizes me.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
My other understanding of it too is that it's something that happens to maybe one person all the time in little increments.
Right. Yeah, it's a continual. I mean, and there's so many different levels that it can work on. It can work on gender, race, sexuality, ableism, all these things, right? So it's not just one thing, it's multiple levels of things.
So let's transition to talking a little bit about male allies. And maybe we can use this as a transition to talk about the place you arrived at where you can say, on recording, I did something the other day that was really racist. Whereas for most people, like, that's just washes of shame. And racism is always associated with KKK. So how can we get to a place where me as a male ally or somebody who has privilege in an area where we're talking about oppression, where I can receive feedback?
For me, I think it really... it's been years as an educator, right? Like, for me as an educator, I find that I create the safest spaces when I'm vulnerable and when I share my humanity. It empowers other people to share their humanity as well. So knowing that I'm imperfect, knowing that I'm raised in a racist, sexist, homophobic society, knowing that I'm just as guilty of these things, like, I want to share that, like, I'm not out here to judge you, right? Like, I'm not out here to say you did this or you did that. We're all trying to learn together. We're all trying to get better together. That's the place that I want to come from when I create my Male Ally Project.
So we're calling out the action, the behavior, rather than the person as a soul. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Where do you start in creating a male ally?
When I was creating the curriculum around it, I really wanted to go in first, right? So really reflecting on how things that, how the way we were raised has enculturated us into certain patterns.
Okay.
So I had them watch a video called The Mask We Live In.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's a really powerful documentary that focuses on just how men are socialized. And it's been really interesting hearing some of the men's feedback on it, you know, just not even thinking about these things before and realizing that being a feminist doesn't mean just necessarily supporting women. It means really trying to undo their patterns of thinking as well.
If you can share without breaking confidentiality, what are some examples or themes that come up that men are consistently surprised to reflect upon?
I think just even the deepness of it, right? Like how ingrained it is on so many levels. And one thing that keeps coming up is the idea that men are not supposed to be sensitive.
Yes.
Right? This idea of there's so many walls up and that boys don't cry and all of these things. It's so deeply ingrained and it has limited men so incredibly, you know?
What about the role of violence and masculinity and how we are, what's that word called? Socialized. Because when we're saying, I'm not supposed to cry, I'm therefore supposed to express my anger or my hurt, often through violence.
I think that in itself is an incredible violence towards self.
Yeah.
Right? The rates of suicide are much higher in men of color. And that, for me, that speaks to this internal violence that's being done when we have to shut down our emotions.
Yes.
You know, because then things go outwards and become physically violent, right? Or abusive or things that are punishable, right?
Yeah.
And that's because we've been taught to not deal with our feelings inward and really take them outward.
How do you create a curriculum? You just brought up a good example that has an intersection of race and gender.
I think that there are things that I think about and there are things that I talk about. And I think when I framed the curriculum, the group of men, this cohort is very diverse in itself, right? So making sure that people are aware of privilege, making sure that if people are folks who tend to speak up a lot, they provide space for the other folks. Making sure that everybody knows that this isn't just a single issue, right? It's intersectional. It's so very layered. It has to do with race. It has to do with sexuality. It has to do with ableism, age, all of these things, right?
Yes. Well, thankfully, we seem to be more and more living in a culture, at least right now, where many high-profile people are finally being held accountable. And things like the Me Too project have gained greater visibility and more conversations around rape and rape culture. Where can we start with teaching men not to rape rather than telling women not to get raped? What are some places we can start?
For me, my passion is starting in the classroom. And I, one of the things I've been thinking of but haven't really put into action yet, but I'm hoping to do, is really starting in the elementary school classroom, right? Like a lot of times we have like sexual harassment trainings and all of this in college or the businesses, but by then it's so late to undo these thinking. So why don't we start when the kids are little? Really talking about how do we raise feminist sons? How do we really bring up boys who are loving and kind and supportive and sensitive?
Yes. Well, maybe we could use this, if you're cool with that, this platform as a way to provide some education too. So where would you start if someone is like, okay, I've only...
How do I do this?
Yeah, how do I...
I mean, I think it's reevaluating self first and really taking stock of some of the beliefs that self has. And then finding tools to look at that differently and then teach it differently, right? So if a boy is crying, if a girl is... It's so interesting. Like, I personally don't have kids, right? But I do have a lot of friends who have kids. So I can see even when I'm around them, oh, she's so cute and he's so strong. And just little things like that make a huge difference. She's so strong and he's very beautiful. Little things, right? Like addressing kids differently. I have an interesting story. I had a professor in college. This was about 20 years ago. And so our culture is very different back then, even, you know.
How many
decided
years ago?
20.
Okay, 20 years.
Decided not to reveal the gender of their baby. Dressed it in yellow, named it Aubrey. Very gender neutral names, right? They said that by the end of 3 months, they had lost all their friends.
Wow.
Their friends were so uncomfortable being around the baby, didn't know how to speak to the baby, that they just stopped coming around. And so finally they had to reveal the gender because you want community to be around your baby. But it's the societal like construct of gender is so deeply ingrained in us that we don't know how to deal with things if we don't have that there. So just looking at things of how do we do it so it's not so boy and girl, right? And so strong and so pretty.
How does that translate then to the conversation around rape culture?
Let me think about that for a second.
Okay.
That's a great question. I think that rape culture doesn't necessarily just mean rape, right? Rape culture is a culture where there is a idea of privilege or entitlement. So it could be slut shaming, right? It could be this idea of, it's interesting, Cardi B has brought a lot to my attention and really reevaluating my idea of feminism, right? And I think it's brought up a lot of dialogue. Rape culture means that like she can do whatever she wants. But there's going to be people out there saying she's a hoe, she's a bitch, blah, blah, blah. Really, she should be free to be able to do whatever she wants. She's not hurting anybody.
And therefore less than. Because she's those things. She deserves less respect.
Right. Does that answer the question?
It does. So I'm hearing that we're teaching men to be entitled, to demand, which translates to things like sex, and women to not trust your voice, and women to, instead of being strong, to be cute and things like that.
And silenced or quiet. And
to not trust your voice.
Yeah.
So what are some things around, you also do sex ed, sex positivity. What can we start teaching people around healthy sex, consensual sex?
I think that word right there is a huge buzzword right now,
Okay.
right? Consent. And it's interesting thinking of it and even thinking of my past, how much like non-consensual sex or how much power and pressure there has been put at times, you know? I think starting early, again, is really key. You look at some other countries and they have remarkable sex ed programs that start in kindergarten. You know, and just really,
Powerful.
yeah, right? I was watching, I can't remember, I think it was Denmark. They have a public TV show, like on their version of PBS, all about sexuality, and it's meant for little kids. It's targeted, it's all sparkly and very kid friendly, you know, and it actually showed how to have sex. I was like, wow, this is public TV.
Yes.
It's
interesting because in our culture, that would be shocking.
Oh, totally. Completely. Like, you're promoting sex, and now we're going to have all these pregnant women, and...
Exactly.
You know? Whereas, in reality, if we look at things in a sex-positive way, there's so much more responsibility and empowerment that people gain through that.
And it's crazy because we're okay with sexualizing young girls, but not providing sex education to young girls. Okay, you said sex positivity. What is that?
For me, it's this, and I don't have all the answers,
course,
right? For me, it's just this idea that as human beings, we are animals, right?
Yes.
And sex is a way that we procreate, and it happens to be really enjoyable and really fun, and looking at it in a way that doesn't demonize it, and especially shame women, and give men this bravado of like virility, and really just looking at it as something that is a connection between two people that should be enjoyed.
That's awesome. So let's say there's a guy listening who has been seeing all these things posted online, and so they want to learn more about how to be not the way that we've been programmed. Where would you start? What are some things that maybe we can offer around consent, around how to not be a misogynist or sexist?
How do you not be a misogynist?
Yes.
I think asking questions is
Okay.
always key. Checking in, making sure that people are okay with things. Like, is this something you want? Learning how to read emotions, I've noticed, is very challenging for a lot of folks. So trying to figure out, you know, it's interesting. I've been playing like improv games a lot lately, and you really have to tap into being able to read people. So starting out doing silly games like that, like looking into people's eyes and trying to read emotions, all of these things really help us increase our sensitivity.
What do you think are misconceptions or miseducations that men have around consent?
That it will desexify.
Okay, that'll be less sexy.
Right. And another way of looking at it is like, I mean, consent can be really sexy. Like knowing that a partner is willing to really think and ask and be there with you brings a huge connection. You know, and can be so appreciated and loving and kind. And so I think that that's a huge misconception, this idea of like, we're going to stop the moment and make it all awkward. And no, there's ways that it can be done that can be really beautiful and sexy.
Interesting you bring that up because that was a misconception I have. And then I learned consent, enthusiastic consent. And the first kiss, when I'd go to kiss someone, I'd be like, is that okay if I kiss you? And they would be this one person was so upset. They're like, I want you to kiss me like Fitz kisses Olivia. And what's dangerous, I don't know if you watch Scandal, but it's often on shows where they're like, no. And the guy keeps coming. And I think that is also a misconception, that no actually means try harder.
Right. That's a huge one, right? And it's so normalized in our media. And it's like, it's the same thing as this idea of abuse, like teaching boys that, like, or teaching little girls that when he's mean to you, he really likes you. There was a meme that came, right?
Wow.
This is something that we tell little girls all the time. Oh, he's just being mean to you because he has a crush on you.
Yes.
That's normalizing abuse.
In what way? Break that down.
that's this idea of a relationship then means that somebody can be mean or somebody can be insensitive and somebody can be cruel, and that's showing love.
That's showing affection.
Whereas in a healthy relationship, showing affection is asking questions.
Feels good.
And it feels good, right?
Yeah. Ooh, I'm just marinating on that. What do you think?
That one for me as a DV survivor, that one was huge for me. And it's something that I still struggle with. And in trying to find a healthy relationship, it's something that I really have to deprogram myself from.
I used a phrase that people might not be aware of. I said enthusiastic consent. What is that?
Actually, I'm going to ask you to explain it.
Yeah,
Because I've heard it, but I don't know if I could explain
so for me, enthusiastic consent is that you want the person to give you their yes with enthusiasm. So if it's like you wear the person down, and they're like, fine, that's not enthusiastic consent.
I see.
Yeah. Or
Okay.
if they're obviously passed out, that's not enthusiastic consent. Or so that
You want them to be really into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it's very, 100% without a doubt, and you've heard them say.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard the term, but I've never had it broken down like that.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Appreciate
Thank
it. I heard it from Jessica Valenti.
Okay.
Have you heard of her? She wrote a great book called The Purity Myth.
Huh.
I think she founded feministing.com.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice stuff to read.
So what else does your curriculum cover?
The Male Ally Program?
Yeah.
So we start off with getting into self, right? And then thinking about how to be an actual ally. And so thinking about ways, being an ally is so many things. Being an ally is doing the work. Being an ally is providing space for women. Being an ally is trusting and listening to women. There is a great blog, I hope I don't mess up this name. Two Dope Brothers.
Okay.
I think that's their name. They had an amazing article and were very vulnerable themselves about how they don't trust women. Right? And I can't remember his name, but he was speaking about his wife and how even with little things, just about finances and little things, like he'll make comments or he'll take on the work because he doesn't trust her to do it. And that in itself is so devaluating, right? Devaluing. Yeah. So really looking at self and the ways that we interact with women to make sure that they are empowered and feel good.
I think that's a really good example because you have been encouraging us to reflect. I think that's a really good one to start to notice our behavior of when are we not trusting women's voices. What are some common times that maybe in your life or you just in general teach that chances are these might be some areas?
Yesterday, I facilitated a workshop and there was a gentleman who was taking up a lot of space. And so I went over to kind of speak to him about it. And he was like, well, you're very young. You wouldn't know. And actually, I'm about to turn 40. And just the fact that, like, that in itself, was like, no, like, I am facilitating this workshop. I am of value. I am here. And I deserve to be heard.
So would you think that had I said it, that he would have said that to me?
Yeah.
You think he would have said the same thing?
I don't. I think, and it was interesting. I was talking to some folks afterwards, and I was like, if I were a man, I don't think he would have questioned my age.
I don't either.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I'm 30.
Yeah.
So I'm younger.
Yeah.
And he probably would not have said it to me. What about the people right now who are hearing us and saying, well, maybe it was an age bias. Why are you making it about gender?
Just to that point, I think if a man was to be the facilitator, he wouldn't have questioned.
Yeah. My answer to that, too, is that I think when you've been on this earth for almost 40 years as someone who looks like a woman, you get a feeling for what sexism feels like. And so I often...
That intuition.
Exactly.
Right?
You're like, I felt this before.
Yeah.
Which really is a trust women.
Yeah.
If people are not believing you, that's a good example of
exactly
not trusting
exactly. That's a beautiful point right there. Thank you. Yeah.
Would you mind sharing with us some other, I don't know if they use the word tropes, but other kind of for instance, I know people say in meetings, a woman will say an idea and then a guy says it.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples?
I have a funny meme a friend posted, and it was like, how to be heard in a meeting. Wear a mustache.
Oh my gosh.
It was hilarious. But it is a lot of those things, right? Things like women presenting ideas and it being glossed over, and then a man presenting it, and everybody's like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly.
Those are microaggressions. That's devaluing of our voices. That makes it so that we don't want to share because then we don't feel supported.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
What about around people who are survivors and trusting women? Mm-hmm. Often it seems in our culture, women's voices aren't trusted when...
Right. And I think that this hashtag #MeToo movement has been incredibly powerful because it brings it to life to so many folks, right? When it's a woman sitting next to you that you know and that you love, you're like, oh, it makes you sit back and think, right? And then when there's so many, it makes you sit back and think. And I think that I shared, it was Domestic Violence Awareness Month in October. And so I shared my story for the first time ever publicly. And it was really challenging for me because I know that there were people out there thinking, oh, that's not abuse. That's not, I mean, he didn't slap you around all the time. You know, okay, maybe he wasn't supportive, but that's not abusive. Maybe he said you were crazy, but that's not abusive. But this idea of mental abuse, right? And thinking of what a healthy, happy, supportive relationship looks like versus one that's mentally abusive. And mentally abusive relationships are incredibly normalized in our communities. When I was teaching in the classroom, I used to teach a unit on what it looks like to have healthy relationships so that my students knew, okay, these are qualities of healthy relationships. These are qualities that you should really reevaluate if you're in a relationship like this.
Can you give us some examples of both?
Sure. I think what you're speaking to about how you feel in a healthy relationship, you should feel happy and loved and supported. And it shouldn't be like sparkles and glitter and unicorns at all times, but there is space for you to work things out and there's trust there. But in thinking of healthy relationships, right, how we feel is really important. We should regularly feel enjoyable, enjoyed, loved, cared for, and we should love to do that the same for our partner.
Yes.
Right? In thinking of unhealthy relationships, there is fear, there is mistrust, there is jealousy, there's anger. All of those are present in unhealthy relationships.
What about consent in relationships? I think that's another area of misinformation.
Right. Just because you're in a relationship doesn't give somebody the right.
The automatic permission.
Right. The automatic, oh, it's okay, right? There should be consent in a relationship. It shouldn't be, especially like if people are partying, drinking, like if there is any doubt, then that's a no-go.
Yes.
You know?
There should be enthusiastic consent in a relationship.
Yes.
I think I've heard on talk shows, like having sex with your partner while they're asleep and waking them up.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys thinking that's like sexy.
Yeah. Not cute.
How is
Not cute.
would that be considered rape then?
Because, I mean, if a person is unconscious, they cannot consent.
Yeah.
And anything that is non-consensual is rape.
Yes. For, maybe this comes up in your classes, but for guys who did not know this and in their past were active misogynists.
Right.
But at the same time, we're like the good guys. They thought they were good people.
Right.
Is there any redemption for that person?
Yes. I mean, we are learning. We are here. We are doing the work. We've all done stupid, shitty things in our past, you know? The important thing is that we start doing the work and recognizing that and becoming better.
And just if I could just push a little bit, assaulting somebody or raping somebody, and tell me if this is too uncomfortable, that's not stupid and shitty.
Yeah.
That's like something that for some people, like, that person should never, ever be given a chance back in society. There's no redemption for that person. So for, like, that kind of a misogynist.
That definitely takes it to a different level. I think for that, I try to base my practices in restorative justice, in this idea that there is transformation that can occur, right? And in processes like that, and it depends on the survivor. Like, is this something that you go and you sit and you have circle and you do a lot of building within yourself and the community to repair? That would depend on the survivor, right? You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go say sorry and cross this off my list and I'm good. But if the survivor is not participating, then how do you still make amends? How do you still do this work? How do you own your mistakes, become public about it, share those stories, and really try to transform yourself?
And once again, unless this is breaking confidentiality, but as a facilitator of a group with men coming to be allies, how do you work with transformation for men who want to become allies with that kind of a history?
It hasn't come up yet, honestly. In thinking of what I would do, because I know some of the men have expressed that they're, like, hesitant because they have had non-consensual sex in the past, right? Which is rape. So having them share those stories, I think, is really important, and owning that they did it. Owning that they did and working towards the future. And then checking in with them about how do they make those amends, right? Like, do they go back and do they talk to this person? Do they check in with them? Is that person going to be re-traumatized by that, you know? Those are important things to think through.
What do you think about even this conversation we're having? Do you think silencing a survivor by centering the conversation right now on the redemption of a perpetrator, or is it important? What do you think?
I think it's important for all voices to be heard. I think that a lot of times survivors are put on blast and made to share out when they don't want to. And I think that is not a just way of taking things either. Just because they're a survivor doesn't mean that they have to share. They're entitled to sit and take their own time too. You know? Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I know for me, my intention of this whole interview was when I was seeing men say that for every Me Too, there's a because of me. And I was reading articles of men saying, here's all the things I used to do that I thought was okay, that's not.
That's impressive. I haven't seen that in my community, which I would like to see more of.
And I think that for a lot of guys, because I do workshops with men around this too, that there's that fear, I think also around race or any sort of ism of, if I say this, then I'm done. Yeah. Like I will lose my job, I'll lose my family, I'll lose everything. So people don't ever take that step towards accountability.
I think that fear is huge and real, right? And I think that it's important for us as a society to really take that leap so that we can become stronger and really go there. Because without these challenging conversations, we're not moving forward.
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, you might lose some people. You might, you know? And you might not. You might gain things. You might become a stronger person. But it's important to really take that leap.
The closest thing I saw was there was this young man who was homeless and he was gay. And there was this other young man, they were both in high school, who was a neo-Nazi. And him and his friends, the neo-Nazis, kicked this homeless person because he was gay with razor blades on their boots. And they thought they killed him. Oh my God. Then they were both 40 and volunteering somewhere. And we're both working to help a school that had a group of teens that were starting a white supremacist group at the school. They're both called in to work on it. And they started talking about their history and realized he was the perpetrator and he was the victim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then their whole year-long process of redemption.
Yeah. And I think you speak to something there, a year-long process.
Yes.
It's not something that's just like, boop, check, bye. It is something that when we think of our justice system, it's kind of like a throw away the key, we're done kind of thing. Transformative restorative justice takes time.
Yes.
It takes time, it takes thought, it takes intention. It's not a cure-all, but it is something that can really move our society forward.
It's a powerful conversation.
This is good. I like this.
What else would you like to share?
I'm hungry. I think for me, it's just really important that we base things in love. You know, that we base things in an understanding that we're all trying to do better, that we have a lot of work to do. And the less we judge each other and the more we hear each other, the more work can get done.
I'm hearing you put those on the opposite ends. Judgment's here, listening is here. Am I understanding you correctly?
For me, I have been a very judgmental person. And I'm very much trying myself to work my way out of that and be a person who asks more questions. I think it's also important to know your boundaries. When there is something that's racist or sexist or homophobic or anything that doesn't make you feel good, you do have the right to be judgmental about that and walk away. So it's a nuanced thing as well.
What are the ingredients of a loving relationship for you?
I'm going to start crying. I think for me, feeling supported, feeling heard and listened to. I think joy is incredibly important. I think sex is incredibly important. I think being able to have challenging conversations and come back and recycle and revisit ideas and build and learn together is really important. Traveling is great. Yeah. This is something that I'm going to say I'm going to cry because it's not something I've ever experienced. So this is something I would love to have in my life, but I can't say that I've ever had it. I've had a 7-year DV relationship. I was raised in a household that was domestically violent. I'm very blessed now to be surrounded by friends who have loving partners. And so I can see through them what I would think is a healthy relationship, but I've never experienced it.
Do you have hope?
Yeah, I have to. There are times when I get lonely and times when I get sad, but I've put a lot of work into myself to undo patterns, and I trust that that'll work out one day.
Inshallah.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. So if folks want to be in your world, let's start with the Real Talk Project. How can they become a part of that?
TheRealTalkProject.com is my website. You can follow me on Instagram at Amrina, and you can check out my Instagram for The Real Talk Project as well. _ The Real Talk Project _ again. And then Facebook as well. The Real Talk, so Real Talk is together project, Facebook.
And can you spell Amrina for us?
Sure. AMREENA.
Perfect. You can check all that out at the show notes as well, of course, and you can see that down below at tommerl.com/Amreen. So this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
Thank you. Is the Real Talk Project evergreen, as in I can take it any time of year, or do you have certain times it starts and stops?
I'm having cohorts, so it'll be offered again in March.
In March? Okay, wonderful. And do you mind sharing how much it is for folks to join?
Sure. It is $60.
That is
a deal.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there any, do you have a podcast or YouTube or anything like that?
I don't, no.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
Well, this has been...
Think about getting one of those, doing that one day.
A little bit at a time. Yeah. This has been absolutely amazing. What would you like to invite them to consider or invite them to do, or what's an invitation you'd like to leave us with?
I would like to invite you all to just, I think self-reflection is huge. Really, especially right now, we're going into a time where we're spending a lot of time with family. How can you do some of the reflection around interactions with your family? And how can you push some of these challenging conversations and be a listener and a hearer with your family as well?
That's deep. I like that. Yes, indeed, my friends. And as you know, we're always going to try to be a resource for you here at the Celebration for self-reflection and tools for empowerment and dialogue. It's been amazing. High five, Worthy. Yes. Thank you so much. Folks, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. We did it.
Yes.
Boom.
Thank you. I'm a high fiver too. That was awesome.
Cool.